Okay, folks, here you go. So what I want to do, I'm going to continue to talk about the balance points, the lower point, lower balance core, middle core, and upper core. But before we unpack this, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, thumbs up or thumbs down, and please leave a comment. I appreciate all the comments. Okay, so what I was going to do, I was going to just hop right into the upper core and start talking about that, the attributes with that, right? And again, when I say these are attributes, these are commonalities that we see that Dr. Wright and other people that have, used this system have seen that correlate with other players, and it really helps players start playing some really good golf, regardless if they playing rotary golf, stack and tilt, premium setup, traditional. It doesn't make a difference if we find that person's optimum core balance point. Whatever they're doing, they can do a lot better once we find that power point, because it allows them to play with more speed, more momentum, and more balance. And that's the key, right? When you look at the best players in the world, they all are swinging nice and balanced, right? And the more balanced we can become, the more powerful, the more speed, the more momentum that we can create, okay? So again, I was gonna hop into the upper core and start talking about the attributes of that, but I said, let me really talk about this a little bit deeper. So I'm gonna make a second video talking about the lower core, right? So again, these are attributes that we see, right? We notice that a lower core player has more rotation and have more lateral motion. You don't see these type players get up on their toes. It just doesn't happen with this type player. It's just something that you don't see. They're not doing a JT. They're not jumping out of their swing, right? They're not what we call losing your posture, right? Which really is not. It's not losing your posture, right? It's just this type player doesn't have to extend and get more vertical, because they're using the power sources of rotational and lateral, right? Okay, but do you have to tick off all the boxes? You absolutely don't. Let's take Ben Hogan. Ben Hogan is the classic lower core balance person, right? A lot of lateral motion and a lot of rotation, right? But what didn't Ben Hogan do? Ben Hogan didn't have the super strong grip. He had a really weak grip, right? So you can play within these windows of successes, what I like to call them, right? Back in the day, Ben Hogan had that strong grip, but he weakened his grip and played with get his clubs bent a little bit open to help prevent that dreaded hook that, kept him off tour for a while, So can you be a lower core balance person and say, well, hey, coach, I just can't change my grip. I like playing, with a 2-knuckle grip or a 1-knuckle grip. Of course you can, because what's going to be more important than that is going to be, are we training you to be more rotational, and are we training you to be more lateral? And if you have those attributes, you're going to play some great golf. All right, so I'm going to play right here. Barely can see a knuckle, right? And I'm going to use the lower core attributes. Oh, it's a pretty ball, right? The ball didn't have no turn on it because I weakened my grip up, hit that ball right into the wind. Beautiful shot, right? But I still kept the main attributes of the lower core player. I had a nice lateral motion, and I had a lot of rotation, and then my release was way out here away from my body. So yes, you can mix and match, to be honest, as long as you keep in the power sources, I would say, right? So for the lower core player, and I'm focusing on the lower core because the majority of golfers out there, I think they said like 66% are upper core players. So we're going to spend some time on the upper core, but I wanted to cover the lower core because the lower core always gets overlooked. I noticed that it always get overlooked because it's the least amount of players out there are lower core players, But I think it's important because I think it's a smallish percentage, but we still have a lot of lower core players out there, and we have players that are right there on the line of lower core, middle core. So they can really play in between those cores. They really can, because they're right on the balance point where they could be a lower core or they could be a middle core. They're not 100% middle core balance people, okay? They right there where they could go either way. So I think a good coach is going to give that player a couple of drills, see what happens, and see what the numbers say. Measure it, see what the numbers say. If that player has more lateral motion and more rotational, and they don't need the vertical, then hey, let that player play in there. Help that player be the best player that they can be. So again, Ben Hogan, prototype lower core balance player. Prototype. A lot of lateral motion, a lot of rotational motion, but he had a weaker grip. But he kept what I call the foundation. Keep grinding, folks. Remember, the journey does require work. Peace.